Let me take you back to a simpler time when the biggest worry in my life was whether I'd trade my shiny Charizard for 2 holographic Machamps. Spoiler, I did, and I've never forgiven myself. I was in 4th grade, 9 years old, full of hope and completely unaware that the most embarrassing moment of my young life was about to unfold. It was a Monday, but not just any Monday. It was Pizza Monday a day, so special that kids would line up in the cafeteria like it was a Taylor Swift concert. Our school didn't have a lot going for it, but the rectangular slices of greasy, overcooked cardboard-textured pizza were the stuff of legend dots. So naturally, I was pumped, but things started going wrong before I even left the house. I woke up late, like mom dash, screaming dash, at dash, the dash, top dash, of dash, her dash, lungs dash, wild dash, juggling dash, my dash, lunchbox, late. No time for breakfast, no time to brush my hair, and most importantly, no time to pee. Now, this was a major tactical failure on my part, because even at age 9, I knew my bladder had the holding capacity of a leaky water balloon. I was the kid who went to the bathroom during every commercial break, who never drank a full juice box before a road trip, and who always peed before school. Always not except that day. So I rushed out the door, jumped on the bus, and ignored the small but noticeable pressure building in my stomach. I'll go when I get to school, I told myself. Classic mistake. When I got to class, I immediately realized something was wrong. The hallway bathrooms were closed for maintenance. There was a yellow sign with a cartoon toilet frowning, and a janitor shaking his head like someone had committed a war crime in there. I didn't want to know. I just wanted to pee. But class was starting, and I figured I could wait until recess. It was only 45 minutes. What could go wrong? Mrs. Bramberton began her lecture on the water cycle. I kid you not, the water cycle. She stood in front of the whiteboard with her overhead projector, cheerfully explaining evaporation, condensation, and precipitation, while I sat there vibrating like a soda can in a paint mixer. Every mention of the word water made my bladder cry a little. My leg was bouncing so fast it could have powered a small village. I tried to raise my hand, but Mrs. Bramberton had a strict no interruptions during science rule. I whispered to my friend Jake, who was doodling a ninja on his math notebook, "Dude, I need to pee." He looked at me with the kind of concern normally reserved for people trapped in elevators. "Go ask her." I tried. She ignored me. Jake shrugged. "Well, good luck, man." Not helpful, Jake. Not helpful at all. I lasted until the end of the water cycle lecture. Barely. And when she finally asked if anyone had questions, I shot my hand up like my life depended on it. She squinted at me like I was speaking a foreign language. "Yes, Mrs. Bramberton. Can I go to the bathroom?" She sighed. "You had recess 15 minutes ago. That's when you should have gone. But I know you'll have to wait until lunch." I sat back down, defeated. I had exactly 25 minutes to survive. Just 25. I figured if I stayed very, very still, like a pea-filled statue, I might just make it. I was wrong. The next few minutes were a blur. All I remember is the rising panic, the sweat on my forehead, and the growing certainty that I wasn't going to make it. And then, just as we were transitioning to a reading exercise, it happened, a warm, uncontrollable trickle, followed by a flood. It was like a dam had broken. My body just gave up. I froze, eyes wide, mortified beyond anything I had ever felt in my short, tragic life. The sound of the liquid hitting the floor felt louder than a jet engine. My face turned a shade of red I didn't know was biologically possible. And then no, someone noticed. Jake's eyes widened as he looked at the growing puddle under my chair. He whispered, "Oh no," like he'd just watched someone die in a war movie. I wanted the earth to swallow me whole. Mrs. Bramberton turned around and saw the chaos unfolding. She gasped and walked toward me like she was approaching a wild animal. Did you have an accident?" I couldn't even speak. I just nodded slowly, tears welling up. The class went silent for a second. And then it started. Dot laughter, snickering. Dot. One kid, Jeremy, may he step on a Lego every day of his life, actually shouted. He peed himself like it was a presidential announcement. I was escorted out of the room like a criminal. The janitor appeared with that awful sawdust stuff. They used to cover up bodily fluids. I don't know what's in it, but it smells like a mix of cinnamon, old wood, and regret. Tom, my mom had to bring me new clothes. She hugged me and told me it happens to everyone. I didn't believe her. I still don't. I'm pretty sure she never peed herself in front of 30 classmates while learning about evaporation. Asterisk, after the incident now known in local lore as the Great Leak of Room 204I, spent the rest of the day in the nurse's office wearing a pair of sweatpants that were clearly from the school's lost and found bin. They were 3 sizes too big, neon green, and had property of Lincoln Middle School track team written down one leg. Even though I was in elementary school, stylish. The nurse offered me a juice box and a gentle pat on the back, which honestly just made me feel worse. There's something soul-crushing about sipping apple juice in shame while wearing pants that could fit 2 of you. When my mom finally picked me up, she did her best to act like it wasn't a big deal. She told me about the time she once spilled tomato soup in her lap during a date and everyone thought she'd had an accident. I appreciated the effort, but it wasn't quite the same. She didn't have to go back to school the next day and face an entire class of 10-year-olds who now saw her as a walking pee joke. And boy, did they lean into it. Asterisk, the next morning, I walked into class with the cautious optimism of someone who thought maybe, just maybe, people had moved on. After all, kids have short attention spans, right? Wrong. Jake greeted me with, "Hey, Zilla," and the rest of the day just went downhill from there. One kid started calling me Waterboy. Another whispered the word sprinkler. Every time I passed by, Jeremy, yes, that Lego stepping gremlin again, drew a cartoon of me with a fire hose for legs and taped it to the wall of the boys' bathroom. I considered changing schools, or identities, or species. But eventually, something miraculous happened. A week later, during music class, Brandon Matthews, our class jock, mouth breather, and recorder prodigy, farted so loud during hot cross buns that the entire class stopped playing. I mean, it echoed. It had reverb. Mrs. Barlow even dropped her baton. The silence was broken only by Brandon whispering, "Was it me?" while turning a color that rivaled raw beets. Suddenly, I wasn't the pee kid anymore. Brandon was the fart kid. And the cycle of elementary school shame continued. Asterisk, looking back now, it's kind of amazing how big that moment felt at the time. Like my entire social life had been flushed away, pun totally intended. But the truth is, every kid has their moment. Their awkward, humiliating, pants-wetting moment, whether literal or metaphorical. Some people trip over nothing and faceplant in front of their crush. Some people say mom instead of teacher in the middle of class and never emotionally recover. Some people fart so hard they derail an entire recorder concert. And some pee themselves in 4th grade while learning about precipitation. That happens. What they don't tell you is that one day those moments become stories. And then the stories become punchlines. And then the punchlines become YouTube videos with animated reenactments, dramatic music, and sound effects of toilets flushing in the background. And when that happens, you finally get your power back. So yeah, that one time I peed myself in 4th grade. Total nightmare at the time. Now, it's the highlight of my comedy origin story. Asterisk, years later, I'm talking high school senior year. We had this class memory lane event where everyone brought in old photos and wrote down a funny memory from elementary school. Most people talked about field trips or that time the fire alarm went off during lunch. But Jeremy still a menace, put up a poster that said, "Never forget room 204, the flood." And beneath it, he taped a drawing of a stick figure standing in a puddle next to a shocked Mrs. Bramberton. The class laughed. But this time, I laughed too. And you know what? I walked up to that poster, grabbed a marker, and added a speech bubble to the stick figure that said, "At least I didn't fart during hot cross buns." Brendan didn't find it quite as funny. You'd think the story would end there with laughter. healing, and me getting the last word. But no, life, much like public school bathrooms, is full of unexpected surprises. A few weeks after the infamous flood of room 204, my teacher decided we should do a class project on the water cycle. Again, yes, again. Apparently, one traumatizing unit on precipitation wasn't enough. This time we had to act it out in groups as a creative interpretation. Some kids did dances. One group made a rap. My group, we decided to do a skit. Now, I didn't volunteer for this. Jake did. And because Jake was the kind of friend who once dared me to eat an entire glue stick, and I did, I somehow ended up being cast as, you guessed it, precipitation. Dude, you're perfect for it, Jake said. It's poetic. I don't think Jake knows what poetic means. Anyway, our skit was as terrible as you're imagining. It involved me standing on a chair, wearing a white garbage bag with cotton balls glued to it, while holding a blue squirt gun. I was supposed to shout, "I am precipitation," and spray water onto the audience, aka the front row of confused fourth graders, while Jake danced around yelling, "It's raining! It's raining! Science!" It was chaos. Someone slipped. Someone screamed. The principal walked in halfway through and got a face full of mist. The janitor had to bring out the mop bucket again, and I swear he looked me in the eyes and muttered, "Not again." Honestly, I don't blame him. But here's the thing. People loved it. Not because it was good. It absolutely wasn't. But because it was so ridiculously bad that it became legendary. I was no longer the kid who peed his pants during the water cycle lesson. I was the kid who became the water cycle. The line between humiliation and fame had blurred completely. From that day on, "I am precipitation" became a thing. People would yell it across the playground. It became an inside joke so powerful, it actually replaced Waterboy as my nickname. And you know what? I took it. I owned it. Because being precipitation was better than being a punchline. Asterisk. Years later, when I hit middle school, the story of the fourth grade pee incident started to fade except among my closest friends. New schools meant new reputations, new beginnings, fewer cartoon drawings of me standing in puddles. A real win. Honestly, by 8th grade, I'd even made peace with it. It became one of those stories I'd tell at sleepovers. Right between the time I accidentally sent a love letter to my math teacher and the time I threw up on a roller coaster and it hit the kid behind me. That one's a whole other video. But the real full circle moment didn't come until high school. Asterisk. Senior year. Big stage. Bright lights. The annual senior send-off talent show was the last hurrah before graduation, and guess who signed up? That's right, me. It was Jake's idea again, which should have been a red flag. But this time, we weren't doing a science project. We were doing comedy, a full-on sketch reenactment of our greatest hits from elementary school. The finale, the great pee incident of 4th grade. We built a cardboard replica of Mrs. Bramberton's classroom. Jake played Jeremy, complete with fake buck teeth and a shirt that said #1 Tattletale. I wore jeans soaked at the bottom with blue paint for accuracy and delivered my lines with over-the-top drama like it was a Shakespearean tragedy. Forgive me, Mrs. B, for I have not peed, and now, I must. We even included the janitor with a mop and a soundtrack of dramatic violin music. The whole thing ended with a spotlight on me shouting, "I am precipitation." As the curtain closed, the crowd lost it. Teachers, parents, students, even Principal McDougal, who once banned glitter after the great craft-apocalypse of 2019, was laughing so hard he had to take off his glasses. That night, for the first time, I walked off the stage not as the P Kid, not as Waterboy, but as a comedy legend. I had turned my most embarrassing memory into entertainment gold. Asterisk. Looking back now, I've realized something important. Humiliation ages like wine. It stinks at first. But give it time and it turns into something worth sharing. I used to want to erase that day from my life, pretend it never happened. But now, I'm glad it did, because that ridiculous, soggy moment taught me how to laugh at myself and how to own my weirdness. And in the weird, wacky world we live in, that's kind of a superpower. So to anyone out there who's ever had a moment they wish they could flush away, just know, one day, that story might make someone laugh so hard they snort milk out of their nose. And that's a kind of legacy too. Asterisk.